My head is extra shiny today because my wife shaved my head for me. That's right. I got it like that. No beer for this video, but I'm all fired up. Greetings, my fellow firearms nerds. I am James, owner and instructor for Eagle Defense, which is a Sacramento-based CCW and BSIS training company. I also do various skill level classes, intro to pistol, defensive pistol, so on and so forth. And today we're going to be going over sort of the basics of how to get a CCW in California, regardless of what city or county you live in. And now I say that because now California, caveat, at the time I'm making this video, it's the 8th of August 2025. Right now, California is a shall issue state for residents and non-residents. But there's also county and city specific regulations as well. I'm going to go over the broad California laws as well as some city and county specifics, which really just sort of mimic what other cities and counties are doing. If this seems generic, well, yeah, obviously, because every city and county has the ability to add their own stuff. If you are applying as a non-resident, meaning you live outside of California, you are not a California resident, first thing you have to do is be a member of either Gun Owners of America, CRPA, which is what I'm a member of, the California Rifle Pistol Association, which is my personal favorite, Gun Owners of California, or the Second Amendment Foundation. You have to be a member of one of those organizations. I personally am a member of CRPA, and that's also where I got my CCW Safe insurance from. Now, quick thing, CCW insurance or self-defense insurance is not required by anyone in the state of California. It's not a bad idea, but it's not required. The other part, if you're a non-California resident, is that you have to apply no more than 1 year out from when you plan on visiting, and you have to apply through the jurisdiction you plan on visiting. So let's say next 4th of July, you plan on spending it with your family in Sacramento. So you would apply through Sac County, and you could do it right now because you're going to be visiting next July. And right now it's August 25. You plan on being here 4th of July for 2026. That's good to go. Let's say you wanted to apply because you planned on being in Sacramento for Christmas of 2026. Well, that's more than a year out. You can't apply yet. Other than that, from my understanding, every other process is the same. From my understanding, other than that, the process is the same for non-residents as it is for residents. Some cities and counties may accept online training. Some may not. Other than those two requirements, so the time thing and the membership, my understanding is the process is the same for residents as it is for non-residents. Now, mind you, keep in mind, this just became a thing 8 months ago. So this just got enacted in 2025. So there's probably going to be a lot of bugs that people are going to sort out. But right now, it seems to be more or less painless. If you're an out-of-state resident, the other thing you're also going to need to consider is that your pistol has to be California compliant, meaning it has to be on the roster. So let's say you live in Texas and you have a Staccato C or Staccato CS. You can't list it because we can't normally buy that here in California. But if you have a Staccato like the XD, then that's fine. If you have like a regular Glock 17, Glock 19, something like that, that's fine. But if you start getting into some of the newer models that aren't on the California roster from Glock, you're not going to be able to add that to your permit. If you are a resident of California, you would apply through either the police department or the sheriff's department that you primarily reside in, and you won't have to provide proof of residency, blah, blah, blah. So a little backstory. Back in the day, if you lived in, let's say, the Bay Area, but your parents lived in Nevada County or a county up in the hills where it was a lot easier to get a CCW, what guys used to do is they say they were living with their parents, change a couple bills so that they had addresses going to their parents' house in another county so they could get a CCW because they knew that the Bay Area wasn't issuing. Well, because of recent court cases, you don't have to worry about that anymore because California is now across the board a shall issue state. Generally speaking, again, this is one of those generic terms. Generally speaking, you're gonna start with the application process through whatever agency you're applying through. I'll dive into this topic a little bit more in a minute, but I personally advise people to go through the application process and get approved first and then train so you know that you got approved. I'm a resident of Sacramento County, so I applied through the Sac County's through the Sac County Sheriff's Department. Most agencies are going to have varying degrees of information for the most part. And even when I applied for my Nevada CCW, this is the general makeup of the website you're going to be looking at. It's all online now. So usually no matter what agency you're applying through, you're going to do new concealed weapons permit, and it's going to cycle you through this online process, things to read. Click agree, 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 all kinds of agree after you read the statements. More things to read, pay some money, and then you're going to start filling out all your information online, adding your references, this, that, and the other thing. Yada, yada, yada. Here's some money, next step, and then you basically from here you would go through the administrative process. And that is generally what it's going to look like, more or less, through any California city or county. The longest part of this process is going to be getting a date for your interview. So you're going to go through here, fill your stuff out. You're going to pick your interview date. That's the longest part. So I can tell you for Sac County, I applied in July, and the next available interview date they had for me was like the middle of November. I went through there. We would go over the application and blah, 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 check the block, dot your I's, cross your T's and such. For Sacramento County, they have, I believe it was some sort of panel that convened either every other week, and that panel approves or denies your permit. So after that, for Sac County, after you get approval, you can go out and train, and I'll talk about that in a second. You can go out, take your class, and then do your issuance and all that stuff. So I applied. So as far as times go, I applied in July, got my interview in November, and picked up my physical permit in like the second week of December or something like that. So all in, it took about 6 months. But the longest part was trying to get an interview date. As far as your training goes, some counties will allow you to train first, then apply. Some counties, such as Sacramento County, will tell you you have to apply first, get approved, and then train. The general thought processes behind these two decisions. One is the general process behind letting you go through the class first and then apply is this is going to allow the instructor to walk you through the process and the expectations of that process so you're a little bit more familiar with it, so you just don't jump into this application basically feet first. But I would guess that this train of thought assumes that you already know that you're lawful to carry a firearm and that you're going to get approved. Counties like Sacramento have been requiring you to get approved first, then train. They've been doing that for years before all these new laws were enacted. Their thought process behind this is they do not want applicants wasting their time and money on doing all this stuff without getting approved first. So they want to make sure that that applicant has a guarantee before they go out and spend money. I would assume another thought process behind this is if people just start bogging the office down with all this stuff before they even get approved, well, if they start looking at all these applications that are just getting denied, they're wasting time and slowing down the process for those who would have been otherwise approved. Does that make sense? That's an assumption I have. I haven't asked anyone, but that would seem to make sense given how small most of these offices are. For Sac County, I want to say the CCW office is 5, depending on how many of those people in that office were actually tasked to CCW, I want to say it's like anywhere from 3 to 5 folks. Your initial class is going to be 16 hours, that's across the board, and your renewals are 8 hours, and that's across the board. That is a state standard. You will need to take a written exam, but that is going to be created by the instructor, so there's no DOJ written exam for CCW like there is for, say, a BSIS permit. That doesn't exist. Different counties will have different standards for courses of fire. There is not one single standard that the state puts out. I have seen them generally no lower than about 24 rounds and no higher than about 50 rounds. Some counties may require you to take a mandatory live fire training, so similar to like what BSIS does. So some counties will say, hey, before you take this, let's say 50 round required course of fire, the instructor must put you through this 25 round training piece course of fire, basically. As far as like some of the different courses of fire goes, here's Sacramento's. It's 35 rounds. It's all two-hand standing, 1.5 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, and 10 yards. And here's the course of fire. Here's the target shall measure blah blah blah. Here's Contra Costa. Here's Coco County's course of fire. Notice it's what do we got? I don't know how to do 20 something. Look, I'm not a math guy, but you notice the distance is different. So it's not the same course of fire as Sac counties. It's because there is no state standard. Each city and county is doing their own thing. There's a max limit of 3 guns you can list on a permit. Some counties, like Contra Costa, limit you to only 2 guns on a permit. And from what I've seen, I don't know if this is a state standard or not, or if everyone's just doing this, you can only physically carry 2 guns on your person. As far as modifications go, each county is going to be different. So I emailed Sac County and said, hey, what can I do? And they said, you may modify the grip or sight, but they will not allow the milling of the slide. So now we're going to look at Orange County, and Orange County says, as long as what you're doing is otherwise legal in the state of California due to a pistol, we don't care. So let's say you have a Glock and you buy a new Glock trigger, you'd have to go to another instructor, shoot the course of fire. That instructor would give you a certificate, and then you would either email that into whoever you have your permit through, or you just retain that file. So here we're looking at, again, this is Orange County. You do your modification, you complete the training and inspection as if it were a new firearm, and the training certificate should be emailed to Orange County. For Sac County, they're only taking modifications when you renew. So I've had my permit for a while, and I bought a new gun. I can't add that gun to my CCW until November of 2026, I think is when my expiration date. So basically 90 days before my expiration date is when I can add my modification, or when I can add that gun to my new permit. With that in mind, your CCW is good for 2 years, and you can generally apply up to 90 days early before it expires. I haven't seen any cities or counties that do any more or less than 90 days. So the modification thing is important because let's say for instance you're a Sac County resident where you can only add guns when you apply for renewal. Again, you'll be in a situation like I am, where I found a great deal on a handgun. I bought that handgun, but I got to kind of sit on it for a while as far as adding it to my permit goes, instead of just, maybe I should have just bought the gun or found this great deal a while ago, blah, 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 whatever. But point being, let's say you're a resident of a county where you can only add guns to your CCW during renewal. You need to make sure that's a thing, and make sure that if you want to add guns to the permit, you do it when you take your training class. Even though I understand there's a money question there, because how many folks are going to go up to their wives and be like, babe, I have to buy this gun now or I have to wait 2 years, right? I personally recommend, no matter what, you have at least 2 guns listed on your permit. Even if you only own 1 handgun right now, get another one and add it to your permit, because again, remember, we are carrying firearms for our self-defense. So if we, God forbid, we get into a shooting, no matter what, there's a solid possibility that gun will be seized and booked as evidence until the court case goes through and I can get that pistol back. So in the meantime, if I only have one gun listed on my permit and that gun gets taken as evidence, what am I going to use to defend myself? Some cities and counties are going to regulate like calibers and stuff to a certain degree. So here's Contra Costa County in the Bay Area. Nothing smaller than a 32 caliber, nothing larger than a 45. So let's say you had a 22 caliber pistol. You had like a pistol for starting a race. Well, no, because that's smaller than a 32. Or you had a Desert Eagle 50 AE handgun. Well, no, that's not going to work either. Contra Costa specifically has a barrel length requirement. So let's say you've got like a 38 revolver. Well, you can't have like the Dirty Harry special or like a 357, like those big Magnum revolvers. You can't do that, my guy. Minimum of 5 rounds. This is really talking about revolvers. So you couldn't have like a 4-shot revolver, which I don't know who would want that, but whatever. Fixed or adjustable sights, luminescent, basically night sights are fine. Add-on optics are not permitted. Some counties will say this, some counties won't. When you get your permit, this is basically what it's going to look like. At the top, it's going to have the agency information. Let me see if I can... the green screen's canceling some of the coloring out. The top is going to have whatever your agency information is. Then it's got the your picture and then like your address and your pedigree information, kind of like basically how your driver's license looks. And then on the back is your gun information. So I've got 2 guns listed on here. I blocked out the serial because I know someone wants that information, right? So I got my Glock 23 and my M9 listed on there. You're damn right, I got an M9. GWAT style listed on my CCW, baby. Let's go. And that's really it. It's so much more standardized now than when it was, say, a year or 3 years ago, because there's more... it's shall issue, so that's huge, and B, there's more of a state, there's more state level guidelines, basically. If you got any questions, just throw them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. I love you guys. I'll see you on the range.